Recently, Elon Musk announced that XAI, his AI company, is going to acquire X, formerly known as Twitter, for a valuation of $33 billion, which makes this the biggest M&A deal of this year.
I mean that.
There might be some conflict of interest issues since he pretty much owns both companies, but shareholders don't really seem to care, and Musk pretty much owns all of the US government regulators.
Did you think I was also going to be a chill, normal dude?
So do rules and laws apply in the same way to rich people like Elon Musk as they do to the common folks like us? Not really. But doesn't that kind of undermine democracy? The rule of law? Kind of. Let's get into it.
So we're just done with phrasing, right? That's not a thing anymore?
Imagine you're watching the World Cup. The referee suddenly grabs the ball, jukes the goalie, scores a goal, and celebrates like Ronaldo. You sit there, stunned, not sure if this is a bold tactical innovation or just a breakdown of civilization altogether. Then you find out that the team the ref scored for built a stadium and donated a bunch of money to his kids' soccer team. That's not a plot twist. It's just what people call regulatory capture. Regulators are supposed to protect us, the common individual. But with regulatory capture, they start acting like PR firms for people they're policing. Not because they're evil necessarily.
Danger zone.
It's more because they spend all their time talking to those industries, hiring people from those industries, getting hired by people in those industries, and generally living in the same ideological neighborhood as people in those industries. Eventually, it's not that they forget about the public interest entirely. It's that they begin to believe that the industry's best interest is the public interest.
Wow. A ton of stuff just started to make sense to me.
It's a subtle thing. No regulator wakes up and says, today I'm going to let a bank gamble away the financial system. This isn't just hypothetical. There's a clear revolving door between industry and government. Former executives become regulators, and then regulators become consultants, and then consultants become board members, and board members become very, very rich.
Shut your mouth. I will not let you ruin this for me like you have so many other times.
And look, maybe that's fine. Maybe having regulators who understand the industry makes things more efficient and effective, or maybe it makes them more empathetic. It's in a way that borders on regulatory Stockholm syndrome. They don't just love their captors. They're writing their Valentine's cards on official letterhead. There are, of course, famous historical examples. The run-up to the 2008 financial crisis with mortgage-backed securities rated as basically risk-free credit by rating agencies that were being paid by banks that were issuing them. Now, after the great financial crisis, very few people went to jail. The attorney general even suggested that some banks were too big to prosecute. That is crazy. Imagine robbing a bank and then being told this jail is only for people with smaller portfolios. Please, step right here. Too big to fail and too big to jail.
Because your authority is not recognized in Fort Kickass.
Now, all this talk about regulatory capture and government officials being influenced by industry players comes together beautifully in the wonderful world of lobbying. Companies spend billions of dollars trying to influence how they're regulated. And they're good at it. They hire former legislators who know everyone and know exactly how to write legislation that sounds neutral but helps just one specific business model. Sometimes they even write the legislations themselves. It's very, very efficient.
What are we doing? Did I mention I have a surprise for you?
Now, this leads to a degradation of the rule of law. Elon Musk is perhaps one of the most vivid case studies of what happens when a billionaire decides that regulators are optional.
I reinvented electric cars and I'm sending people to Mars in a rocket ship.
When the SEC charged him with securities fraud for tweeting about taking Tesla private at $420 per share, because of course it was $420. He paid the fine and he went on TV and said, I do not respect the SEC. That's not even paraphrasing. He literally said that. Since then, he's sparred with labor boards, environmental regulators, aviation authorities, and probably the concept of rule of law itself. When one of his companies was ordered to take down a tweet because it discouraged unionization, his lawyers fought it all the way to court and that ultimately overturned the order based on free speech grounds. Was this a fight for free speech, or did it just happen to advantage his company? He also sued the National Labor Relations Board itself, arguing that the agency structure is unconstitutional. It's kind of like getting a speeding ticket and going to the Department of Transportation and suing them out of existence.
Like one time I smoked weed on Joe Rogan's podcast.
He just can't keep getting away with this, but he can. He's rich. He likes hiring lawyers that fight even without much of a legal ground to stand on. And he's popular online with his army of fans. And most importantly, he's really critical to a lot of companies and their valuations. A lot of people are getting rich off Elon Musk. As Matt Levine wrote, I assume that if Musk walked into the office of the Secretary of Defense and snorted a bag of coke in front of him, no government contracts would be canceled. Do you want to send your satellites on my good rockets, or do you want to enforce your rules about drug use by government contractors? Musk is implicitly asking, and there's an obviously correct answer. Musk is too big to fail a drug test. And now you have him running the Department of Government Efficiency with the President of the United States. So good luck trying to use legal means to take him down.
This is like O. Henry and Alanis Morissette had a baby and named it this exact situation.
Now again, Musk is not only a rich and powerful guy that can buy a lot of stuff and influence a lot of people, he's also the guy that makes a lot of other people rich and powerful. Let's go back to our soccer player metaphor. Naturally, if he's the soccer player whose dad is paying for the stadium, the marketing, the employees, then the referee might think twice about calling a foul. In fact, everybody benefiting from the soccer game might pressure the referee not to call a foul, so the players will stay here and his dad will keep giving the people stuff.
But I also write things like 69 days after 420, again, haha.
And Musk is just one example. Bezos, for example, oversaw Amazon's transformation into a company that, while wildly profitable, sometimes pays less in taxes than your average suburban orthodontist. This is mostly legal. It involves stuff like stock options and R&D credits and building a Cayman Island that supposedly houses 40,000 companies. I've seen high school lockers with more room than that building. It's kind of crazy. There are countries whose GDP are smaller than what Amazon writes off in tax deductions.
You know what's dangerous? Your obsession with me. Seriously, Lana, call Kenny Loggins because you're in the danger zone.
Now, the larger point is that extreme wealth buys not just lobbyists, but optionality. On this view, regulatory compliance just becomes another line item on the budget, a negotiable one. And this is not just a US problem. In Mexico, for instance, there was a telecom empire that functioned with near monopoly power for decades, fending off competition and regulators with absolute ease. In Russia, oligarchs are basically a part of the state apparatus. Globally, the story is also true. If you have enough money, enforcement becomes a conversation. There's a lot of corruption and not a lot of consequences.
Just remember this. We were this close to banging.
This brings us to the broader implications. If big companies get sweetheart deals and little ones get crushed, doesn't that distort the markets? If breaking the rules is cheaper than following them and the punishment only apply to people who can afford to fight back, then enforcement isn't deterrence, it's just theater. It's like Jeff Bezos having those huge hedges that technically break the bylaw or something, but he just pays the fine. He doesn't care, it's just a fixed cost now. There's an important idea with the rule of law that justice needs to be seen by the public. And eventually people notice. They lose faith in the system. They decide that success isn't about building a better product or offering a better service, it's about getting better at playing the regulatory game. In the worst case scenario, you kind of get this feedback loop. Deregulation begets more wealth, which begets more lobbying, which begets more deregulation. Pretty soon, we're not even pretending that the playing field is level. We're just watching the referee score over and over again.
For I am a sinner in the hands of an angry God. Bloody Mary, full of vodka, blessed are you among cock.
So what can be done? Well, we could try to fund regulators properly so they're not outgunned by corporate legal teams. You could try to close loopholes, or you could try to restrict lobbying or make it more transparent at least. You could try to create stronger protections for whistleblowers and incentivize that. You could, at least in theory, remind everyone that capitalism works best when everyone plays by the same rules. The worry is that we have a violation in the rule of law. The idea that nobody is above the rules and the laws apply to everybody impartially. We need this idea for the legal system to function, and we need legal systems to function because it's probably one of the things that are holding this thin masquerade of a social contract together and stopping us from total anarchy, in theory. But if it turns out that the rules don't apply, if you can afford to negotiate them, then we might be on a slippery slope downwards.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
But what does it mean if the rich and powerful are only subject to some of the laws? Maybe we're implicitly consenting to some sort of plutocratic rule, or maybe we think that the benefits from the rich and powerful are greater than the rule of law, or maybe the rule of law only applies if your net worth is less than, I don't know, the GDP of some nations. Or maybe these rich people have seized some sort of sovereignty and we just need to acknowledge the rules of the nation of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates. I don't know. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, or don't, because apparently rules don't matter these days.